Hey everybody, it's Ken the Metal Professor. I'm the host of a music show called Mostly Metal on WVLP 103.1 FM in Valparaiso, Indiana. And since quarantine started, I've been making these videos of top 10 lists and preference ranking of albums for rock bands and metal bands to go along with my show where I've been playing these top 10 lists on the air. And I've also been putting up a list of YouTube video links to these top 10 lists on my website, which is metalprofessor.com. And the last couple of weeks, I got myself behind because I had a deadline for something I'm working on at work, and my daughter's graduation open house was this past weekend, and it was a little bit harder than it normally might be because we were setting up proper distancing and figuring out how to route people past the food table, so it wasn't a buffet style, but we were kind of handing out food a little bit at a time. And that was a very, very busy week. And, I just got lazy. So I'm going to try to catch up here. So if you're watching these videos, you'll see two of them where I'm in my nice, sharp white shirt, which is opposite of what I should wear if I'm going to talk about metal, but what the heck. So I'm going to do Nightingale in this video. So top 10 favorite songs and preference rankings for the albums. And then I'm going to click pause, and then I'm going to fire up Foghat, top 10 songs and preference ranking for those. And then maybe not tonight, but sometime soon, I will do Power Quest, and that will get me caught up with everything that's been out on the air. I'm going to say Nightwish like every time. Nightingale, the sort of gothic hard rock light heavy metal band fronted by Dan Swano, they only have 7 albums out. And so instead of doing the preference ranking of albums and then doing the top 10 list, I'm going to see how this goes to sort of break them out together. And if you've noticed, I've sort of crunched myself over and down a little bit so that I can populate the top of my screen here with albums, and then on the side have my list of top 10 favorite songs getting populated at the same time. I won't know how that looks until I shut up and edit. So let's hope it works out okay. So 7 albums. I'm going to kind of come in at the bottom of the list in terms of my preference ranking, and then I will put those up here in order. And every time an album or a song that's in the top 10 shows up on an album, it'll pop into the list over here. And by the time we're done, both lists will be full. So my least favorite Nightingale album is the first one, The Breathing Shadow from 1995. To me, this one has sort of this moody gothic vibe in which the guitar tone and the guitar sound is a little bit samey throughout the songs. And the first half is pretty good. The second half isn't as interesting to me. When I listen to Nightingale, not Nightwish, Nightingale, to me there's 2 versions of this band, right? The first version that was predominant in their first 3 albums is the one that's much more slow and moody and gothic. And then there's the version that still is moody and gothic, but they kind of got a little more energy, and they have some songs that are a little bit more well-paced and melodic. And for some people that liked the very first album the most, the latter albums might have a little bit of disappointment to them, but I tend to like the latter albums a little bit better, although there's kind of a mix in here. Now, the songs that I like on The Breathing Shadow would include The Dream Reader, Return to Dreamland, Alone, and Lesson in Evil. And in fact, The Dream Reader is my number 9 favorite Nightingale song. I'm going to hope that worked out well. Coming in at number 6, White Darkness from 2007. This is their second most recent. Oh, good God, it's 13 years old. Oh, man, I just did the math in my head. So as part of the new class of Nightingale, kind of the latter albums that were a little bit more upbeat, not quite as depressing as the ones that came before, it's my least favorite of those. And, I like Wounded Soul, and the title track is good, Hideaway. The song Trial and Error is an excellent tune, and it's my number 7 favorite Nightingale song. When I think about it, talking about Nightingale and how there was the moody gothic version and inside of the more upbeat version, the other thing that I appreciate about them but also wish was a little bit different is Dan Swano's vocals. They're not bad. In fact, I like listening to him sing in this mode of clean vocals to be a counterpart to his harsh stuff, say in Edge of Sanity or some of his other projects where he gets to growl all the time. The problem is, even with his low, is it a baritone? I'm not sure, but I'll call it a baritone. What the heck? His nice, low, clear vocals, it kind of sounds like he's singing through clenched teeth. Sort of like Dave Mustaine when he sings a lot of his thrashy stuff. It sounds like he doesn't open his mouth and really go for that punch out of the gut with his vocals. I don't know why I said that. It came to mind when I'm talking about some of the more modern albums, like White Darkness, which sits at number 6. At number 5 is I from 2000, Still in the Dark, Remorse and Regret, I Return are all great songs. Still in the Dark is my number 5 favorite Nightingale song. I would draw a line in this list between 3 CDs that I've mentioned that, I like them, I'll listen to them. It's not like I'm never going to listen to any of these again. They're all in my, my Spotify mix for Nightingale. I own all 7 of these CDs. But coming up, the top 4, to me, these are remarkably, I'm not going to say better because this is a matter of personal preference, and I know some people will have their list completely flipped compared to mine. But in terms of what I like and what I'm in this for, these top 4 are much better examples of that kind of melodic heaviness that I'm looking for out of my Nightingale. At number 4, I will put Invisible from 2004. The number of tracks on here that I really enjoy grows a bit. You've got Still Alive and Atlantis Rising, number 2. To the End, Misery, which creeped in at number 10, and The Wake, and several more off of this, but it's really good. The Closing Chronicles at number 3 from 1996. Okay, now this is where I sort of flipped the script because this is one of the earlier albums, but there's enough really good melodic stuff in here that it makes me happy. Revival and Thoughts from a Stolen Soul, So Long, parentheses, Still I Wonder, Steal the Moon, number 8, and the closing track, Nice and Long, Alive Again. It's great stuff. Number 2, Retribution from 2014. It leads with On Stolen Wings, which is my number 4 favorite song. I just love that track and the vocals and the melodies. Lucifer's Lament, Chasing the Storm Away, which is number 6. 27 parentheses, Curse or Coincidence are the songs that I like the most on that one. And then coming in at number 1, my favorite Nightingale album is Alive Again from 2003. Shadow Man is my number 3 favorite Nightingale song. Up until very recently, I would have put it at number 1, but when I started making this list and I really started thinking about it, and I listened to Atlantis Rising off of Invisible, which has always been neck and neck with Shadowland, I decided that Atlantis Rising was going to pull ahead and take the number 2 spot. Into the Light, State of Shock, and then also on this album is the wonderful 11-minute track and my number 1 favorite Nightingale song, Eternal. So in this one 11-minute song, you get everything that I love about Nightingale. You get the moody, slow, gothic vibe. You get the more upbeat, up-pace, melodic parts to it. Good crunchy guitars. It just, if you don't like Eternal, then you're not going to like any of the other Nightingale whatsoever. So it's almost like a good litmus test, and it's my favorite one. So since I sort of did the albums in order but not the songs, I mean, you have the list of songs. Hopefully it was working out over here to my whatever side this is on the screen. But my favorite one is Eternal, then Atlantis Rising, Shadow Man, On Stolen Wings, Still in the Dark, Chasing the Storm Away, Trial and Error, Steal the Moon, The Dream Reader, and Misery. I'll mention, in case this happens to you, as I was going through Spotify, I've mentioned this before, you know, I have my CD collection over here, but just for portability and convenience, I make playlists of my favorite bands on Spotify. You know, it's the digital version of the old 90-minute crappy cassette tape I used to make my mixtapes on. And I went through all the Nightingale albums and I pulled out my favorite songs from each album and made this really long list of good Nightingale songs for me to listen to. And then I went back and started pulling out my favorites of my favorites to figure out my actual top 10. And something weird happened with the song referencing where the track titles on the album The Closing Chronicles ended up different if I went to the album The Closing Chronicles out of my playlist and my top 10 list versus if I just went to the Nightingale artist area of Spotify and then clicked on Closing Chronicles. I would get two totally different track lists. The first song title would be correct in both cases, but after that, it would go down. And the song Steal the Moon was actually labeled as being called Info Check or something like that on the weird track list version that I would get if I was already in my playlist and then clicked, you know, view album out of there and went to the album. I'd get a different list of song titles. So it was hard for me to figure out what the titles actually were for a while, but I think I got it sorted out. And I actually tried to get in touch with Spotify to let them know, but they didn't seem to care that much, and it's hard to get to where you can report something like that. Like, they have a reporting area for if you're an artist or a manager or a label and you notice something's out of whack with one of your albums, there's a pipeline for you there, but there's not really an avenue for a customer to go report really deep, weird stuff like this. And I went to their Spotify support Twitter account, and they were like, yeah, we'll tell somebody about it. So I don't think it's been fixed yet, but go try an experiment. Build your own Nightingale playlist and see if that happens to you. All right, so that does it with Nightingale. Now I'm going to click over and I'm going to come back and do Foghat. I don't know how many people that listen to my list of Nightingale are also going to listen to my list of Foghat, but we'll see.